Okay, let's see if we are live here for our training Tuesday. Facebook is telling me we're live, so hopefully we are live. I'm going to see if I can pull it up on the page for everyone joining us tonight. Welcome to Training Tuesday. We are happy to be here with you. And for those of you who saw the promotions tonight, you know that I have a special guest with me. The brilliant coach Kim Connolly is joining us tonight, and we have a really cool topic to talk about tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about what Kim and I were talking a minute ago about reinvention, and in a way, it's not really reinvention, but it is. So we're talking about what do you do now? What do you do now? Where do you go from here? You're at a place in your life where, due to any number of things, due to a significant life change, or an empty nester, a job change, you've just been laid off, you've lost somebody, right? Your spouse, your partner, your parent, somebody has passed away, and it changes your sense of identity. It changes your sense of self. And when we get to this place, we can often land in a spot of, now what? And who am I now, right? We can feel a little bit lost. This is where my friend Kim has some brilliant expertise and a whole lot of experience that I've asked her to join us tonight and to share. And so, as you guys know, and hey, look who's here. I see that who do we have here? Christine, I'm glad you made it. Donna, welcome. We both know Donna. Hi, Donna. Kim, wave hi to Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Kimberly's here. Thank you, Kim. It's good to see you. Kelly, it's been great to have you join us again. And Anna, hello. For everybody else who's joining us, hey, Joyce, I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you. As always, I encourage you to say hello in the comments, to ask your questions in the comments as well. We'll address as many of them as we can. Happy to take your questions, even if it takes us in a little bit of a different direction. That's okay. That's what we're here for tonight. But stay engaged, stay interactive. Kim has a lot to share with us. And for any of you who are new, and this is your first Training Tuesday, I want to say welcome to Training Tuesday. We are here every Tuesday night to talk about themes of building up our self-confidence, talking about imposter syndrome, stepping into leadership and leadership values, and what does that mean for us. So my core here as a coach at Dirty Girls Consulting is helping women step into their greatest leadership possibilities, whether that means that they're doing more and doing better with where they're at, whether they're pivoting in their careers, or they're just trying to build up their self-confidence and find their voice. So welcome to tonight. Happy to have you here. Happy to have you engage, and really looking forward to this conversation with Kim. So I see also Hema's popped in. Hey, Hema, it's good to see you. And Rochelle, it's great for you to be here. And no worries, there will be the replay. Yes, for those of you who can't stay or who are tuning in the replay, still say hello, ask your questions. We will absolutely come back to it. So with all of that warm up, I'm going to turn this over to Kim to tell us a little bit about, Kim, tell us a little bit about you, your background, and what brought you to this place in particular when it comes to coaching and how you help your customers, your clients.
Yeah, hey, I would love to. It is great to be here. Thank you, Natalie, for inviting me. This is important. This is an important conversation that I don't think we talk about enough. A little bit about me. I'm married. Excuse me. I have a 23-year-old daughter who just recently boomeranged back home. So that was a little bit of an adjustment. It was an adjustment when she left, and then it's been an adjustment since she's been home. But we're doing well. What brought me here to this work, to this world, was my mom. My mom passed away in 2016, and I was looking for some help during that time. I had a lot of I had a lot of stuff around this relationship with my mom. That was a great, I had a great relationship with my mom. And also because it was my mother, it was complicated, right? I mean, that just kind of comes with it. And so I was looking for some help around that. I actually went and do therapy, and also shortly after found a coach. And that's what kind of, I realized at that time that I am not the only woman in her 50s that is going through this, a loss, things change, right? And so what I thought the second half of my life was going to look like suddenly is not that at all. And so where do I go from here? So that's how I came to then become a coach and do this work that I do with midlife women who are trying to figure out what is next for me in the second half of my life because I didn't foresee this happening, whatever this was, right? And so yeah, I just recently I have a corporate background and I just recently left my job in December and I'm now doing this full time. So that was another identity change that I had to go through. So there's been a lot, right? And I feel like we don't become 50 and older without having these things happen because this is life, right? And so what do we do now when suddenly it's not at all what we planned on, right? And so that's kind of where I that's the work I do. That's how I got here. And yeah,
Okay. So we have a question and a comment. So first, Kelly, hello and welcome. And Kelly's just commenting that she recently stepped down from a management position to accept a job closer to home so that she could spend more time with her family. She has an 11 and 13-year-old and a husband. So
mm,
that's definitely an identity pivot, right? When you're shifting roles and maybe it feels, and you didn't say this, Kelly, but just from what you just said, it feels like maybe shifting back a little bit. And I know that can sometimes be challenging to our ego, even when we know there's another benefit right on the other side of it. And
mm,
I see, oh, Jackie and Sue are here. Hey, ladies, welcome. And Christine hit us up with a question. And I'm glad she did, because this is an area that you and I have talked about, Kim, and that I knew I wanted us to dig into a little bit more. Um, so Christine's question is, how do you forgive someone when you're still angry after their death?
mm,
And I know one of the things that was in one of the promos, but for anybody who didn't see it also, Kim, and you just mentioned it now, like your mother passed away, and that was part of your kind of trigger for, oh, things are different now, and who I am is different now. And I don't know if you experienced this with your mother or with anyone else in your life, but the question is, somebody that I love has passed on, and now I'm pissed at them. What do you
mm-hmm.
how do you deal with that? Like, how do you work through that?
Yeah, like that's a process that I'm still working through. I so my brother, so my mom passed away in 2016. After she passed away, I then lost a sister and a brother. The sister that I lost was she was a drug addict and she died of a heroin overdose. My brother passed away from cirrhosis from drinking. He was an alcoholic. And so and I still deal with this with my brother, quite honestly, because my sister passed away, and with my brother and myself, and my brother was 2 years younger than me. And he said to me, Kimmy, I'm never going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you all alone, Kimmy, I promise. And I'm like, you better not, Robbie, because I can't do this by myself. Right. But he did. Right. And so he did leave me alone. And I was really angry at him for a long time. He's been gone for 2 years now. And I had to get to the point where, and it takes a lot of work before I realized that his dying wasn't personal. Like he had his own stuff that he was going through, and I couldn't save him from that. My wanting him to live for me was not enough because he had his own journey that he was going through. And that's hard, right? But that's really, I had to get to this place where I was like, okay, he didn't do this on purpose. He said he wouldn't. He lied to me, but he didn't do it on purpose. And honestly, if he felt like he had had a choice, he wouldn't have. He loved me, right? But he also was an alcoholic and he had his own demons, his own stuff, right? And so that's
What
I
helped you?
I
What helped you get there? What helped you get to the place of I'm angry at him for doing this thing. What bridged the gap to the perspective of, okay, I still not happy about that, but I also understand this was his.
I had to really look at our relationship that I had with my brother. And I realized for myself, I was number one, afraid that I was going to be by myself. And I was looking to him to save me from that. That's the realization that I had to come to. And that was a hard realization to get to. Like I put expectations on him he knew nothing about. He had no idea, right? But that was just going through the whole, work of looking at my codependency because I had codependency stuff with him. Our relationship was not healthy, right? And so that was, I had to look deep within and I had to ask myself those hard questions. And also, I had to see a therapist. Like, I couldn't work through this stuff on my own because I was getting all wrapped up in what happened to me, what he did to me. I wasn't able to separate me from him and my path and his path because in my mind our paths were supposed to be like this because he was my brother, right? And so it really was the help of a therapist that I was able to kind of untangle that. I couldn't do it by myself.
But a key part of that also is you just said like your own sense of identity has to shift
Yes.
because now instead of part of this family group, you are alone. And so your identity as a sister, as a daughter, right, is now really one as an orphan. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
And and then how does that color the way you think about how you move forward and what that means for who you are and how you behave, right? And how you interact with the rest of the world. I mean, I imagine it's a shift in all of that. And I think that's probably working through grief like that, I think is probably one of the most traumatic ways we get to that point. I think for other women, we'll get to that point of trying to figure out how we reinvent ourselves because, like in Kelly's situation, it's a job shift. And maybe it's not the job shift she would have chosen for herself if she were just on her own, but it's one she did for the benefit of other people, right?
Mhm.
For some of us, it's a career move because we got laid off and now we have to find something different. Or it's you mentioned earlier that your daughter she boomeranged but she left, right? Empty nest I know is a big thing for a lot of women who are over, well, probably under 52, but especially over 50 is my identity as a mother has just changed altogether.
Yeah.
um, One of the things, so in all of that, knowing all of those things, and thank you for sharing actually all of that about your family, because I think there's probably a lot of women here who can also relate to exactly that. The family members that we deal with have their own demons that we think that we can help them fix, and we can't. And that's a very hard realization. But when we're in this point of we're wrestling with the who am I now? What does this mean to me now? What do you think are the most common fears, right? That sort of holds us back from really stepping into a new identity.
Well, I think the biggest fear is, am I enough? That question, am I enough for whatever this new identity is, whatever this new door that you need to walk through or you want to walk through? Am I enough? And what are people going to think about this, especially if, uh, if you're part of a family or a part of a couple and maybe you don't feel completely supported in this decision, right? Am I enough? And are they going to be mad at me, right? Are they going to understand? Because ultimately, we all want to be understood, right? We all want to be accepted and we want to be understood. And I think that we lose ourselves a lot in that because we want so desperately to be accepted and understood, right? And so we just keep giving and giving and giving, right? Until I'm kind of going off a little bit. But I mean, when you get to this whole midlife, stage, season, age, whatever it is, people talk about it as a midlife crisis, but it's really a transition because something happens to a woman who starts to go through menopause or turns 50, and you start to really like ask yourself these bigger questions because you realize that like you have less life in front of you than you had behind you. And what did you do with that time? Right. And so it's scary. I'm just going to say it's scary. Um, Especially when you thought you knew what you wanted and you thought you knew the direction that you were going to be going. And suddenly that shifts.
Why do you think it happens at midlife? Why do you think there's so many of us? Because I know we're not alone. Um, why are there so many of us that are looking around going, how did I get here and where do I go next?
Yeah, I think, you know, we are strong. I'm going to just, this is kind of we're strong, independent women, right? We have accomplished a lot in our lives, and most of us have always felt like we have some kind of a plan. We've got a path that we're following, right? We've got accomplishments and we've done these things, we've raised our family. So when you identify as a mother and suddenly your kids are leaving, they're going to college, they're moving out, they're leaving, who are you now that part of you that you have identified with so deeply that has required so much time and attention is just kind of left? Like, what happens to all of that? Right. So we start to ask ourselves, okay, what now? What does this mean for me, and who am I now that I'm not a mother? I mean, you're always a mother, but in the active parenting stages, right? And I think that it just all kind of comes together when we, start perimenopause and menopause and our body starts to change, right? And we're like, oh my God, I never had this thing around my waist before, right? And suddenly our clothes don't fit us, and we're just like, what is happening? I mean, it's like a big joke sometimes, and you wonder why
It's
women
not a
start
funny
to
joke.
no, like why am I the brunt of this joke, right? And suddenly things just change. I don't know exactly why that is, except that there is a part of us that starts asking deeper questions, bigger questions, and suddenly the things that we accepted as okay stop being okay anymore, right? And this career that we've worked so hard for, and this ladder that we have climbed that has always given us this sense of purpose, suddenly sometimes that changes and it's not enough anymore,
Yes. So
right?
I want to share something with you, and then I want to get back to a different question. First I want to share just in the comments because I don't know if you can see the comments.
No, I
Um,
can't.
Kelly is saying yes. Am I enough? Did I do enough? And the big one, who am I outside of being a wife and a mother? Definitely struggle with these questions because most days I don't really know. And Donna added, for me, I identified too strongly with who I was as a professional. When I retired, it took me a long time to redefine my purpose and to find a new identity. So I'm going to share this really quick, and then I want to get to another piece, which is this is just reminding me. I haven't shared this story in a while, but if you've been in my group in a while, you've heard the story. So bear with me. When I got divorced and my ex-husband moved out of the house, he took all his stuff with him, and all his stuff included 90% of the artwork that was hanging on our walls. So when he left the house, I had a visual canvas where I looked at it. And first of all, I was like, wow, how much of my life did I spend living with that man's crap first? And second was, what am I going to put up there? What's, I know what his art is because I've been living with it for 22 years. What's my art, right? What do I want to look at? What does it look like for me? And my mother went on this mission of like literally, she lived in Arizona, I lived in Florida. She was mailing me art. Like she was unframing things and rolling it and sending me scrolls and saying, frame it there and stuff. But like she and my father were sending me all the extra art they had to help me fill my walls, which gave me like these boxes I'm opening to go, oh, do I like that? Do I like that? I didn't know. I didn't know what my style was. I didn't know what I liked. I literally, for the first time in my life, hired an interior decorator, not because I needed to redo my entire house, but because I just didn't know what I liked. I was like, help me figure me out. It's that identity, right? My identity was as a couple, and clearly was his stuff took priority. And so it was a whole that was a whole rediscovery. You and I talked about this a little bit earlier, Kenley. It's not always a reinvention. It's sometimes it's just a re-uncovering of who we are and what that is. So I have a two-part question because Hannah asked a question or made a comment, but I think it's important to touch on. So the one question I want to ask you is, what should we be thinking about when we're looking at this whole what now, right? The self reinvention. What are some things either we should be asking ourselves, or just how should we be thinking about this? And either before or after that, I don't want to forget it. So I want to say, Hema wrote, it seems at times it's hard to accept decisions you've made in the past and now think you could have done it better, but now the time is gone. And I like that because that tails a little bit into Christine's earlier question about kind of how do we forgive, right? Something that's already happened. And hers is a little bit different, but it's kind of in hindsight, I could have made a better choice. Okay. And frankly, Hannah, we all, we
Yeah.
all think in hindsight, we all could have made better choices if we knew now, if we knew then what we know now, right? But we don't. So I'd love for you to either or both of those maybe touch on some of your thoughts around that.
Yeah, those are such great statements, comments, and questions. I think the most important thing that we have to do is ask ourselves the question, what do I want? And then start to listen to the answer to that question. Like it's one thing to ask the question, right? Which is a question that we don't typically ask ourselves. What do I want? That's not, unrelated to my husband and my kids and my career and anything. What do I want? But the second part of that is to answer that question. And that question doesn't usually get answered, right? It's just kind of glossed over. What do I want? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an important place to start is what do I want? To like really get your journal out and write that down and spend, you know, a week on that question. If you're a journaler, I'm a journaler, like every morning or afternoon or whenever it is, what do I want? Right. And just start listing that out over a period of time and see what unfolds for you. Um, and I think that goes into, the whole piece of we get to this part of our life with the regrets, right? The regrets are like right here in front of us suddenly, because again, we realize that we're kind of running out of time, right? And you don't want to make those mistakes again. And also, maybe there are relationships that need to be fixed, mended, right? Or there are relationships that you need to let go of, right? The regret of staying in a relationship that has not been healthy. And that all goes back to that question, what do I want? And answering that question in terms of what do I want my career to be like or not be like, right? What do I want my marriage to relationship to be, or do I not want to be in this marriage anymore? Right? I mean, it runs the gamut, but that's the question. In my mind, that's the $1 million question.
I think that's a really hard question, especially for those of us who, to what you said earlier, right? What do I want? Well, I want this, but it's always immediately followed by a but. And usually the but is, but my partner wants this, but my children need this, but my parents told me this, but my neighbors will think this, right? We then modify what we want according to what the rest of the world is going to judge us by, or what we
Mhm.
think they're going to judge us by. And then we modify the what we want to fit something that's acceptable. And I think for even for me personally, coming out of the divorce, changing careers, moving, because I've moved multiple times now since then, something that I just want to share this as a thought, something that I was listening to an interview between Melinda Gates and Jay Shetty. And I'm going to share it with you because guys, it was a really great interview. But one of the things she talked about was when it comes to, was it her? I think it was her. It was still a great interview, even if it wasn't her. But the thing that stuck in my head was when it comes to making the big important decisions, you don't ask anybody.
Mhm.
You don't ask your parents what they think. You don't ask your BFF. You know, when it comes to making the big decisions, if you're going to do what's right for you make the decision, right? That decision is yours. You own that. And what I thought was really empowering around that is because, you know, good or bad, right or wrong, this is your choice. And this is the choice you make with the information you have at the time, with where you're at mentally, emotionally, physically at the time. So we're doing the best we can. So to the comment of, you know, when we look back and think about, I could have done it better, I could have made a different choice, I could have made a better choice, you could have, and you could have made a worse choice. And the energy we spend ruminating, right, on the past
Yeah,
is energy that takes away from the focus on what do I want now and
yeah,
where am I in the present? Like what's happening right now and where do I want to go from here? What could this look like? What could this be?
right.
Uh,
You know,
which
a lot of, I was just going to say one of the things that I do with my clients where I start with when you were a little girl, what did you want? What did you want your life to look like? Who did you want to be? Who did you want to become? What did you want to do? Where do you want to go? Like all of those things, because you have no filters, right? And you've got this huge imagination. And I think it's so important at 50 plus, 40 plus to go back there, right? Because that little girl is still there. There are still things she wants to do, right? And so those are the things that I think it's so important to get in touch with. And that's why I really recommend doing this work in a journal because it's private. You're not sharing this with anybody. You're not having a conversation with anybody about this. This is just your thing. And eventually, if you do this work, you will become empowered enough to start thinking, huh, what if I could really do that? Like it's not an impossibility, which then leads to, huh, maybe I'll have a conversation with my girlfriend about this the next time we're having wine together, right? Or maybe I'll bring it up with my husband or my partner, right? I mean, it's going back to because that little girl that we once were, yeah. Um, she knew what was good for us. We think we
you
know
knew
what's
what
good
she
for us. Yeah, we think we know what's good for us now, but that's all just based on our lives and our relationships and our experiences, right? And those things we talked about, you know, protecting ourselves and the walls that we put up. She didn't have any walls. There were no walls for her. So that's
so let's say let me ask you this. So you're working with somebody, they've done some of the journaling and the work, they've gone to the visioning of um, so when I was 5 and they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I had two pictures that I drew for my teacher and that I showed my parents. And one was I want to be a gardener. I want to have beautiful gardens. And this is actually a true story. I want to be a gardener and I want to be a rock star. Those were the two things. Like I want to be able to play in the dirt and grow flowers because my mother was really good at it. And I want to be a rock star because I love to sing and I kind of don't care how good or bad I am at it. Right? Those were the two pictures. I didn't do either of those things, by the way, growing up, right? So all the things we've talked about, right? Your parents tell you a story and your family and your teachers tell you a story and you start being shaped into what you're good at. And your imposter voice comes up and tells you what you're good at or what you're not good at. And we follow those patterns. And I'm no different. So here I am now, and I'm going back to that vision of gardener, rock star. Honestly, a little less interested in the rock star. I still love to sing, but just the idea of on stage touring is kind of exhausting. I have a yard and a garden. I know very little about gardening, but I'm trying to keep that up. But here's the thing. I'm making a pivot then, right? I'm working with you, Kim. We're going through the kind of my history, what I want to do. I'm choosing a new path and a new identity for the person I want to be. And I'm at the point now where if I'm going to be this person, I have to start doing the things and I have to start telling people this is who I am now. Like earlier when you and I were just chatting off camera, it was about you know, how do you announce to the world that you're a coach? You've been, I was known for 20 years as just a marketing person in tech. Then I became a coach, and it was really uncomfortable for the first couple of years telling people I was a coach because it was an identity shift. What would you recommend to this group, but also to your own clients? Like when they're at that stage where if you're going to make it real, you got to start living it. How do they get comfortable stepping into that, telling people, doing the things?
Yeah, I think that that's like we have to stop apologizing, right?
Oh,
Living
yeah.
small and stop apologizing for the things that we want to do, right? Because, okay, this is something totally new that I'm going to try. Um, yeah, people aren't going to understand. But that's as you said, and also we talked about this, your work with the whole imposter side of us, that imposter self that we all have, right? It's telling her it's be empowering ourselves, right? Through it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. You don't think you're going to be a rock star and then suddenly you are a rock star, right? You have to start thinking like a rock star. Like, how does a rock star think, right? Gardener. I was thinking when you were saying, you wanted to have these beautiful gardens, and that goes into another piece of this, which is our passions. What are we passionate about, right? I mean, your gardening dream of being a gardener, maybe that's not something that you're ever going to do professionally, but maybe there's a piece of that that just brings you so much joy, right? Planting a tree or, having your flowers that you tend to. Um, so is getting in touch with those parts of us, and we have to start trying them on before we just are able to like say, here I am, I'm the gardener now, right? Or when I got done work in December, like I've always identified as what I did, right? Like I was good at what I did. I got a lot of recognition for what I did. And so and I needed that, right? I loved that. It fed me in a way that when it was gone, I was like, oh, who am I now? Like, right? Like, I don't have any of that. No one's telling me that I'm good. No one's telling me, oh my gosh, Kim, I'm so glad that you are here today, right? Um, it's just a process. That's really, it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to try on these different personas and know that it's going to take a while. But if it's something that you're really passionate about and it's something that you really want, um, you have to pay attention to that. Otherwise, you're going to still be living with the regrets of your past that are just going to keep following you.
True. Otherwise, nothing changes.
Yeah.
So we're at the bottom of the half hour here. So I'm going to ask you one last thing, which is if there's one key thought, key message, mantra, however you want to frame that, but one key thing you want the women in this group to walk away with tonight, um, what would it be? What would that message be?
Um, that would be to stop apologizing. Stop apologizing
I
for who
love
you
that one.
are. Stop apologizing for how you want to show up in the world, right? Stop playing small. Women, we're so conditioned to play small, to downgrade who we are, right? To downgrade how we show up in the world because God forbid somebody say, oh, she's got a lot to say, right? Why don't we want to stand out? Why don't we want to be seen in those ways, right? So stop playing small and stop apologizing for who you are. And the whole, we touched on the whole reinvention, which as I firmly believe it's not really, we're not reinventing ourselves. We're just becoming more of our true selves, of who we really are deep within, letting that out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are getting better at being us
Yeah.
without all the fetterings of what other people think, how we were raised, what we thought life should be, and instead dealing with, to your point, what's in front of us now, because there's not as much in front of us as there is behind us, and taking the learnings of what's behind us, right? And bringing that with us, but not in a way that weighs us down.
Yeah.
Let's see, we have comments. Hema saying thank you because she has to take off. Anna, when I feel the guilt about being an empty nester start creeping around my brain walls, I think about all my efforts as a mother raising three boys. Kudos to you, Anna,
Yes.
and always doing my best to provide guidance, direction, and support. Absolutely. I don't let those thoughts get very far, right? Because they're not your present anymore. The boys are doing their thing, right? And your present right now is how do you take care of you? And Anna also says, I'm blessed because I'm passionate about the work I do and I get paid to do it. Lucky girl. Um, awesome. Blessed working with homeless individuals, HIV positive individuals with substance abuse and mental health challenges. Anna, that's a lot of work. You have a huge capacity from an emotional and mental standpoint to be able to handle all of that. That's really that's amazing. So thank you for joining us tonight. She repeated, be unapologetic. Sue said, stop playing small. Thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight. As always, I love Training Tuesday. It's my favorite night of the week. Kim here, as you know now, is a coach. She focuses on helping women find this path of reinvention. She, as you hear, has some expertise when it comes to managing grief, when it comes to managing pretty drastic or traumatic pivots. So if you want to reach out to her, you can find her in this group. You can find her connected to the links also promoting this. So feel free to reach out to her if you'd like to have a conversation or do any follow up with her as well. In the meantime, Dirty Girls, have a fabulous evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're watching this in replay, as I said earlier, please drop in your questions, ask your questions, say hello. Kim and I will both be following the threads and the comments on here so that we can respond to you as well. Thank you, ladies. Have a fabulous evening. It is good to see you all.
Bye-bye.